It's Tuesday, August 19th, 4 a.m. in the East. We welcome all of our viewers here in the U.S. and around the world. Up first, another tense night in Ferguson, Missouri, with police in riot gear firing stun grenades and tear gas in a chaotic scene. As protesters demand justice for Michael Brown, the unarmed teenager fatally shot by police 10 days ago. Police report rocks, bottles, and Molotov cocktails being thrown at them. Dozens of people were arrested overnight, some 31 arrests. The curfew was lifted, replaced by new rules prohibiting protesters from congregating. National Guard troops also patrolling the streets. Earlier Monday, President Obama called for calm in Ferguson. Attorney General Eric Holder will arrive there tomorrow to get an update on the federal investigation. CNN's Ed Lavandera is live for us this morning in Ferguson, Missouri, along with CNN producer Steve Kastenbaum. So you've got legitimate protesters there, and then you've got some pretty serious provocation of the police. 2 people shot in crowd-on-crowd violence, a very dangerous night. What did you see?
Well, you know, what we saw early on, which I thought was kind of interesting at one point, Christine, was the police line that was making its way down the avenue where these protests are turning violent. We're relying on some of the religious leaders, kind of community group leaders there, to try to make peace. And we saw throughout the early part of the evening a number of men with bullhorns trying to calm down the situation, but it was clear as things progressed they could only kind of keep the peace for so long, and eventually things unraveled relatively quickly once again, just like last night. 31 people arrested, 2 people wounded, and the captain here of the Missouri State Police says he's urging these people who want to come out and protest and demonstrate to do that during daylight hours, in hopes that we will stop seeing these things start to unravel at night. And Captain Ron Johnson spoke with us just a little while ago.
And today, some of those officers walked by me because they're hurt and they're ashamed that we stood there. And I'm telling you, we're going to make this neighborhood whole. We are going to make this community whole, and we're going to do it together. And I am not going to let the criminals that have come out here from across this country or live in this community define this neighborhood and define what we're going to do to make it right. Have a great day.
And we were out there once again tonight with my colleague, CNN producer Steve Kastenbaum. Steve, I thought one of the things that was significant today was, and we talked about at the beginning, was they tried to rely on some of those community leaders out there to make peace. Did you see a lot of that as well?
We saw a lot of that. In fact, we were struck when we first arrived this evening at how different it was earlier, well, tonight, several hours ago, than it was the previous evening. It was very subdued. They did not allow any vehicles in. Everybody had to walk in on foot, and it was orderly. People were expressing their opinions freely, and they were not being impeded from doing so. And there were a significant number of community members who were sort of acting as police within the crowd. They were policing the protesters themselves. And it was a very orderly scene. And we thought that, oh, tonight's going to be different, because this does not look like anything we saw over the last couple of nights. But then suddenly we had that moment where there were some people within that crowd of protesters that were intent on facing off with police, it seemed.
The other thing I saw, and this is where the rub is when the police makes its way into the crowd. And what I saw was, I thought, authorities specifically targeting various people that I thought you could tell they had been looking at for a while. In fact, I think there were probably 4 or 5 people in my immediate vicinity that the team would move in quickly, identify a person, yank them out, and then they would retreat.
In fact, from our vantage point, we actually saw a young man who was easy to identify, had his shirt off, had lots of tattoos. He threw a bottle at the police, and it was a glass bottle. We heard it break, and then he just stood there with his hands up like this, didn't resist arrest. A number of police officers in riot gear, I presume they have these teams that are planning ahead of time. They know they're going to go out and make these targeted arrests. They came up on the man, they took him into custody, put the handcuffs on him, brought him back in to their area and put him into one of their vehicles without ever firing any tear gas or any rubber bullets or anything like that. So the police early on in the evening were showing restraint. They did not go after this crowd when they saw that the local community leaders were self-policing. It wasn't until later in the night when we got further down the avenue and you and I were down there where there were some people who were just intent on defying whatever orders police were giving. And that's where some of these civilians were shot. We were there.
And let me show folks. This is now the video you're seeing is where that happened. Right. Initially, that confrontation that was going on, that was at the southern end of the street. Right. We moved down on the northern end of up to the northern end of the street, and then we saw someone trying to set a restaurant on fire. We saw fire barricades that were put along Canfield, which is the road where Michael Brown was killed, and then those armored vehicles had to move, and this is where it becomes an even more treacherous situation because you're now moving off into darker streets. Right. And I saw a group of about 15 people scattering in throughout the neighborhood. And that was a volatile situation.
That's the point when the crowd scattered, when these several dozen protesters, mostly young people, scattered down the side streets. We were there shooting video of this as it happened, and that's when we heard the gunshots coming from the side streets. Very clearly gunshots, multiple shots fired very rapidly coming from one side street. We all ducked for cover. The police took cover behind their vehicles, and then minutes later on Canfield, the site where Michael Brown lost his life, again, we heard gunshots coming from the side streets in the same area where the protesters had run down, where they had scattered. It was not coming from police. It was coming from the area where protesters had run.
Right, and at that point, Christine, that's when they moved the news media out and back to this area, which is the command post that you see behind me. And so again, once again, you see several thousand people who come out protesting, demonstrating the way they want to demonstrate in a nice, very, very calm way with chanting and that sort of thing. But once again, in a matter of minutes, it seems like things just quickly deteriorate. Christine?
And Captain Ron Johnson also saying that there were media, from some small media organizations who were finding themselves sort of trapped in the crowd, and police were having to kind of help them navigate through this crowd that was turning quite violent. What's your sense of how much of this is legitimate protesting, how much of this is after dark trying to provoke the police?
Steve can. I'll give just what I saw. The altercations that I saw, I thought it was clearly people who. And I say this because you had those group of people trying to calm people down, and they just weren't having any part of it. Right. You couldn't reason with these people. I watched it all night long, and so I thought it was clearly people trying to provoke some sort of response.
And one of the things that we did notice when we were early on in the confrontation between police and the protesters, I spotted in the crowd some people who were wearing T-shirts with organizations' names on them. One of them, an organization that's calling for a people's revolution. And it's clear that these people, I recognize some of these logos from when we've covered Occupy Wall Street, believe it or not. People who have come from outside this area because this is where it's happening. This is where the cameras are, I presume, and they want to get their message out. These are folks who are intent, and we saw 3 or 4 of them, I think very early on, would not listen to those church leaders and community leaders who were telling everybody to get on the sidewalks, back up. There were 3 or 4 gentlemen who were holding up their signs and going face to face with police and getting closer and closer to them. And those individuals, some of them, I recognized the shirts. They had these slogans about a revolution taking place now. And I presume that those are some of the outside agitators that Captain Johnson was talking about.
Christine, the rule tonight going into the evening, and it worked for several hours, is that police basically told the crowd that you just couldn't stand on a corner, you couldn't just loiter around, that you had to keep moving. And so what you saw for most of the evening was probably in a quarter-mile stretch, people basically walking up and down the street chanting. In fact, I saw some young kids who had probably brought about 20 dozen roses, and they were handing roses out to people. And as long as the crowd kept moving in that circular fashion, there was no response from the police. It was at the moment that everyone kind of congregated into the middle of the street and started pushing forward again, where we saw the repetition from last night.
And one of the things that we also saw out there, Christine, was that there's some people who have been coming out who live on the side streets in the more residential section, who have been out there night after night after night, and they have been making food, barbecuing for the protesters for free, giving out food as a family. And we had an opportunity to speak with them, and we asked them about, how did you feel about this tonight? And this is before it turned violent. And they said, this is the way it should have always been. It should have been respectful of our community. We're tired of people coming in and disrespecting our community. This is supposed to be about Michael Brown and what happened to this young man, this member of our community who was shot and killed by police. This isn't supposed to be about a party, as they said it to us. They saw people wanting to come into their community night after night, and as they described it to us, they said the partying is not what this is about.
You know, I was with, follow up on that point, Christine, I was with Captain Johnson at one point in the evening. He came across the police line and was trying to talk to a group of people about this very thing as he was being shouted out about, you know, police tactics and this sort of thing. And one of the points he was trying to make with people out there who were becoming much more agitated was this idea that you're on this strip of road, you have several dozen businesses that have been shut down for more than a week, really kind of struggling to kind of keep things together. And he was making the point, and I don't know if this got through, but he was making the point is that you've basically shut down this entire area, and when all of this settles down, he's saying, why would any business want to come back to this little stretch of road? He's like, you're hurting yourselves more than you're doing. And you could just see the frustration in Captain Johnson's eyes as he was trying to make this point, and it just didn't seem to get anywhere.
And the thing is, this was the most emotional we have seen Captain Johnson throughout all of this. He displayed an incredible amount of emotion at tonight's, this morning's news conference, and he's clearly tried a number of different tactics, different levels of force. There were days here when the police were a non-entity. They weren't even here, and the community was policing themselves. And so it runs the gamut. It hasn't always been hands-on.
Right. And then, Christine, I think to finish up here, I think this is one of the things, and I heard a couple people talking about it tonight, is that perhaps there needs to be, if people are going to, I think Captain Johnson asked them to protest during the day, but I've also heard people talk about the idea of putting in a moratorium and urging people not to demonstrate, even peacefully and organized the way it was earlier in the evening, that perhaps if they just kind of shut it down altogether, that the point has been made. And you know, let's move on to, you know, kind of fight the next battle, if you will. And I heard that from several people today. Yeah,
a lot of frustration that basically people so angry about the shooting of Michael Brown, they're burning down their own house, and that's so counterproductive. The other part of the story that's so interesting as these nights wear on, you guys, is that every night of violence takes the storyline away from Michael Brown and onto what's happening in the crowds and the lawlessness in the crowds, which defeats the purpose of the legitimate protesters. So very, very frustrating. Guys, thank you so much for your reporting tonight. I know it's been a long night. I know it started peacefully and then got really hairy. Thank you. We'll check in with you again very shortly. Good work, guys.